I looked at one of the comments and it says something along the lines of, thank you, China, because now I'm okay with being a hoe. That is dangerous, because being a hoe is never something that we should be advocating. It's never something that we should be promoting. It's never something we should be proud of. Hi guys, I've noticed that a lot of you watching are not subscribing. Look, I'm not forcing you to subscribe, but if you are liking what I'm doing, I would love for you to subscribe, be part of the community, and just be notified whenever I release another video. I'm growing, I'm a new platform, and I'd love to share the love of empowering women and the hard-hitting discussions that we're having. And yeah, so I appreciate your support, and yes, please subscribe and share, like, and comment. Squirt in his mouth, so I gave him a golden shower. Just got the whole bed clean, knowing that Ceechyna, please have mercy, I ain't get paid till the end of the week. I don't give a fuck, shut the fuck up, get on your knees and grease my feet. Yeah. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Edlyn France, the reality check coach. Today we're going to do something a little different. I want to delve into someone who's causing quite a stir right now in the music industry and all over social media, Ceechyna. Okay, I'm sure you've heard of her, and if you haven't, let's just say she's doing something to a man at the back of the bus. Yeah, what she's doing, I don't know. I'm too innocent to know. Now, artists like Ceechyna, and you can even compare her to other artists like Sexy Red, Megan Thee Stallion even. Artists like them are not afraid to have sexually explicit lyrics in their music. And it always comes from a place of empowering women. And I put the quotation marks there, not because I don't agree that they are, but this is it's not a non-biased view. I do have my opinions about it, but to say they are or not empowering women is yet to be debated in this episode, and that's why I'm putting the quotation marks up. Now, one thing we need to understand as women, our sexuality is power. It's probably one of the most highest forms of power that we hold. With that being said, let's delve into the episode so we can kind of dissect that a little bit. For those who don't know Ceechyna, she is a UK-based rapper. She was actually born in Nigeria and brought here when she was really young. I think she was like a baby. So she is very much British. She's 20 years old, but she started to release music when she was 18, with her first single being Legal Baby. She began writing music at 14, and when she was 15, she gave a speech. I think it was part of her school or some sort of program to do with school. She gave a speech on beauty standards, which since her popularity has gone viral. Now, that speech was quite impactful. Within it, she talked about the beauty standards and social media and what to do to get likes. She also removed her eyelashes and removed her wig. Like, it's quite powerful. So you can see from a very young age, she's always been this girl who holds a lot of power in her tongue, power in her appearance, and power in her performances, let's say. And to bring it to today, she holds a lot of power in her speech and what she raps about, and also how she presents herself. She's usually in a very, very, very skimpy bikini top and very minimal bottom half as well, and parading around London. And it's cold in London, okay? It is cold, especially in the autumn, winter months, okay? That girl has some strength, I can't lie, because just to do that, you're courageous enough just to do that. From the research that I've done on Ceechyna, I can see that it states that she worked in the adult industry. I'm not sure in what capacity, but I know that her name was Chelsea's Milkies. Her real name is Chelsea. And she does reference a bar in one of the songs about why she calls herself Chelsea's Milkies, and it's to do with men enjoying sucking on the areas that produce milk, okay? What I find quite interesting is, being from African heritage myself, Ghana, which is quite similar in terms of culture to Nigeria, which is where Chelsea is from, I find it quite interesting, her being of Nigerian heritage. I have a poem that I've recently written which talks about first generation firstborn, daughter specifically. It's in my shorts if you want to go and have a look. It talks about the struggles and the responsibilities of being a first generation, specifically from immigrant parents. Now, there's a lot of trauma that comes along with that, because our parents are here to work hard, and they're a lot of the times they're not here to parent, unfortunately, or they think they are parenting, but in the long run, it causes a lot more harm than good. So there's a lot of trauma that we have to deal with for sure. And I've talked about my upbringing as well and the kind of things that happened in my childhood. So I understand the depth of coming from such a background, and I understand how you can come out of that and go into the extreme. Obviously, when she turned 18, that's when she released Legal Baby, which was her first like major hit single in the UK. So that really put her on the map. So I understand how you can go from the extreme, because a lot of these households, and I don't know how she grew up, but a lot of these households are quite pressure inducing, anxiety filled, um, are quite regimented in terms of, study, come home, help cook, clean, like very, not a lot of those homes have warmth. And look, this is just from my experience and experiences I've seen around me. That's not everyone, not everyone's experience is the same. But I just find it interesting, her being from that background and now seeing where she is and what she's doing. I wonder, and I've tried to find out like what her parents think or any family members, but I can't find that. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out, that I just find that interesting. So her musical style is very explicit. Some might say empowering lyrics. They reflect her lifestyle and her adult sex work or whatever she was doing in that industry. I'm not quite sure. I think by some of the lyrics, I think there might have been webcams involved, that kind of aspect. I'm not sure if anything was actually physical. From her lyrics, it could be anything, to be honest. She also talks a lot about scamming men. And that ties into the kind of sprinkle sprinkle era, the sprinkle sprinkle women. And if you don't know sprinkle sprinkle, definitely check out Shira7. She is someone that I actually do follow, because I think there's a lot of good to take out of certain things. Look, you don't always have to agree with everything from someone, but sometimes it's good to listen to other people's opinions, listen to other people's viewpoints, and see what resonates with you. Take out bits if things do resonate with you, or realize, no, that's not for me. She talks a lot about basically not having struggle love, and not really investing that much of your emotion, kind of keeping that kind of barrier to an extent. It's not that she's advocating not to love, but she's saying make sure that the man loves you more, make sure that he's bringing money, don't be the broke man, so on and so forth. It's that kind of thing. And that's kind of the sprinkle sprinkle women, or the sprinkle sprinkle era. It's all about chasing the bag and making sure that your man is of certain caliber, who's bringing a certain level of money, who's a provider, rather than you going 50-50 or you having to struggle. Yeah, so she talks a lot about scamming men, and in reference to using her sexual being, her sexuality, to scam men out of money, whether that be coercing them, convincing them that she's going to provide them with some sort of service, so on and so forth. I don't know the extent. I'm just going off of lyrics. So it's all an assumption, okay? But that's kind of what she's alluding to. In her song Last Love, she says, I did what I did for the money. If you don't like it, then it is what it is. Now, we don't know exactly what she did, but basically her main focus is money. Her main focus seems to be chasing the bag, getting it for, it's all about the money. And I think that that's why she talks about men the way that she does. I think she's saying, look, emotions aside, I'm here for the money. Her music often challenges gender roles, dominance and submissives. Obviously, in the song Peggy, it clearly states about pegging, which is a sexual act where the woman is more dominant. If you don't know what that is, Google it, because there ain't that type of show. One thing that I do want to raise is that it's quite concerning that when she turned 18, she was speaking very explicitly about sex and alluding to sex work. Okay, that's quite concerning, because when she turned 18, that's when she released the song Legal Baby. Then why do you know all that you know at 18? What have you been doing prior to that? She has a lyric in Legal Baby where she says, I've been doing this since 15. Let me teach you young things how to be savage. Don't ever fall for a guy with bread. Lead him on, tease him, and scam him. I don't know if she was in the sexual adult industry since 15. I don't know. But it's clear since 15 years old, she has understood that her sexuality holds power, and she has used that to scam men for money. And she's teaching girls, don't fall for these guys, like tease them and take what you need from them. And that falls into this kind of question of women giving themselves away. I was watching Paul Bronson's podcast, We Need to Talk, recently, and where he had Chidera on the show. Now, if you don't know Chidera, she started the saggy boobs movement several years back, in fact. And she has a podcast, and she also is a dominatrix. It was such an interesting podcast, and I actually want to dissect that podcast at some point because I think she threw out so many gems, and I think it was just so interesting to see other people's perspective and other people's lives. Like I said, I don't agree with everything because that's life. You will never agree with everything or everyone's or all of everyone's opinions. But what's good about it is that I got some great insights into another perspective, and she dropped some gems, and she was able to articulate a lot of things that I actually agree with that I don't know if I'd be able to articulate it in that way. So if you haven't watched that, I would definitely suggesting you watching that. It's so interesting. But one of the things she kind of touched on is, why should men have access to me and my body without paying some sort of fee or without giving me something for it? She explained that she believes that marriage is the lowest paid form of sex work. And the way she broke that down was so interesting. And it creates a debate because in relationships, marriage, oftentimes women do use their sexual powers in relationships to convince or influence decisions, or to coax their men into doing certain things, or as a reward mechanism. It is being used as these things, but when it's covered by marriage or covered by boyfriend and girlfriend title, it becomes more palatable, or it allows you to not feel like you're being used or using your sexual means. But the fact of the matter is, we do use our sexual means, we do use our sexual powers. And you could argue that Ceechyna is saying, okay, if we're going to do this anyway, let me make some money off of it. Why am I going to do it for free? I'm just looking at all aspects of this, okay? Because I really want us to be honest. One thing that I always advocate is be honest. Be honest with yourself. Be honest. Like, let's not pretend, okay? When she's talking about things that she's talking about, we're not prudes. We all know what she's talking about. We've either experienced it, we understand it, we've watched it, like, we know. Let's just be honest with ourselves. So she has made a huge impact. She even did something with Vogue recently, which was like, whoa, okay. Like, that's pretty huge. She's gained a lot of attention, obviously, for her boldness and her confidence. Some say she's encouraging women to embrace their sexuality and assertiveness. However, her explicit content has also sparked discussion on the potential influence on younger audiences. And that's why she says in one of her songs something along the lines of, the parents say that I'm bad for the kids. So I just want to break down the pros and the cons of women like Ceechyna in modern day public eye, and the impact that they have, the good and the bad. I'm going to be very honest about this because I think that there are some good to take from her, but I also believe that it can be very detrimental and dangerous what she's doing. So I just want to go through the pros and cons, okay? The thing that she has is definitely an empowerment factor. Number one, I think one of the things that she's doing is helping women reclaim their voice. Now, women have been oppressed through centuries and centuries, especially women's voices, especially Black women's voices. So what she's doing is huge on so many levels. We have to acknowledge that. Women's behavior has always been a topic of discussion, and that's because men are allowed to be highly sexual beings. They are allowed to sexualize women, and oftentimes we are blamed for anything that happens. Okay, if a man looks at us or touches us inappropriately and we're wearing a short skirt, it's because we wore the short skirt and not because of the man. So that is something that happens a lot in society, and that's because men's sexualization has been accepted widely, okay? And you can see that in many parts of the world, even in some Arabic countries where there are literal wars, women dying because of not covering up a certain amount. Women's behavior and sexuality has been a topic for discussion for centuries. And I think what she's doing is saying that as a woman, I get to talk and decide and discuss women's policies. I don't think it should be any man that doesn't understand or know what it is to be a woman. And I think what she's doing is reclaiming her power over men by scamming, by saying, by teasing and making them shut the fuck up and grease her feet. And I think that's what she's doing. She's reclaiming her power over them because she knows that she has that sexuality that they desire and that they are weak to that. And she is using that to get what she needs. she has a strong voice. She's not afraid to be bold and to say what she thinks and to say how she feels and to communicate that. A lot of women don't communicate their feelings. Now, it doesn't have to be to that extent, but a lot of women who are in relationships are holding things in. I did a video about how toxic relationship causes cortisol and how cortisol is hurting your health. And in that episode, I dissected a study that was done where they had two groups of wives who would speak out about situations and issues in the marriage and wives who would hold it in. They talked about the differences in the two groups' health. The women who would express their concerns and talk about things had a longer life expectancy than the women who would hold things in. The women who hold things in would had higher health risks in certain areas than the women who express how they feel. So speaking out and reclaiming your voice is such a powerful thing. And I think that that is one of the areas that she is encouraging women to be better in. Number 2 is self-expression. She is challenging societal norms. What she is doing in a very smart and humorous way, because she's a very smart girl. We have to give her that. She's very smart, very witty, very intelligent. And what she's doing is challenging societal norms by rapping like men have been rapping about women for years. Men have been rapping about women in a very degrading way, in a very, use and abuse way for years. For years, with no uproar. And I know there's always discussions about rap and the influences, but really and truly, there's been no uproar about it. But when Ceechyna is here, she's bad for your kids automatically. So she's challenging those societal norms and challenging those, okay, well, if they can rap about women like this, why can't I? Her doing it is really raising that debate. And when a man does something for years, it's never questioned. But when a woman starts doing it, that's when it's like, oh, actually, maybe, that's when the questions and the discussions start to happen. And what she's doing is definitely providing a platform for women to express their desires and their experiences. And it's very important for women to be able to congregate and to talk to each other and to share experiences and desires and to feel that they're not alone and to feel that what they want isn't too much. A lot of women do feel that maybe sometimes they want too much, or they're afraid to express what they need and what they require and what they desire. And that's really unfortunate. And she's been able to do that so easily, to a point where she doesn't care, to a point where it even appears. And I would believe that a lot of men are chasing her because she has set her standards. They're quite evident. Like, this is what I'm going to require, and I'm going to need money on top of that, and you're going to get down on your knees and grease my feet on top of that. Like, it's kind of unapologetically, this is what I want, and I don't care if you don't want it, because I'm a badass anyway. And that can really encourage women to set their desires and set their expectations, and also to share their experiences with other women and have a place of safety to discuss and to explore. And I do think that that's important. So she's definitely encouraging that type of self-expression that we may not feel is lacking, but I think is lacking in the everyday woman. On social media, there's a lot of self-expression. But that's not everyone in the world, There's so many more women in the world who probably aren't able to, or have a fear of expressing themselves. Number 3, I think one thing she definitely does is she states her worth. She knows her worth. Whether that her worth is low or high, that's still yet to be determined. And look, that might be in the eyes of the beholder, but to her, she has set her worth. She knows what she needs, what she requires, and I'm sure she's made a lot of money. And to her, that's where her worth lies, is with money. And she's probably set a price at that. She's clear on that. And I think it's very important for women to know their worth. I harp on a lot about women understanding their worth, knowing their power, knowing who they are, believing in themselves. I harp on a lot about that because I think it's so important for you to know your worth, especially if you're going to start dating, or if you're in a relationship already. It's important to know who you are, know what you bring, know that you're valuable. Otherwise, others won't know that. Others won't treat you as that. And she's very clear on knowing her worth and knowing where she stands. And I believe that that's why she probably has been able to scam men out of certain things, and she probably has been able to set herself up in a certain level because she's very confident in who she is. Knowing yourself brings confidence. When you know who you are, you're clear on what you are, what you like, and who and where you want to be and who you want to be around, that brings confidence because you don't need anyone or anything because you know exactly where you're going and exactly what you want and need. So you're not just going to be desperate or just fall for anything or fall for anyone, because you're clear on what you need and what works for you. So knowing yourself is so important. Knowing your worth is so important. When it comes to cons, I will call this the concerns factor, because that's what it is. It's the concerns of someone like her being so big in society. Okay. So number one, she's bad for the kids. I mean, she said it in her lyrics that people are saying that she's bad for the kids. That's a potential for misinterpretation by younger audiences without proper context. A lot of younger audiences are going to hear her lyrics, see how she's dressing, and they won't get it. As a 34-year-old woman, I understand the nuances, the wit, the analogies, the shades. I understand what she's saying. I get it because I've been through things, but someone who's young, they won't necessarily get. A lot of people at her age don't understand certain things, haven't experienced the things that she's experienced. So there is a huge potential for younger audiences to misinterpret a lot of what she's saying. Along with that, not even misinterpret it, actually hear what she's saying. There's a lot of clarity in some of her lyrics in terms of what she's doing or what she's or the actions that she's representing. When she's saying I'm pegging the man at the back of the bus, that's not an analogy. It's quite straightforward. Some of it is going to be misinterpretation and some of it is taking a lot of things at face value. And that is very dangerous. I looked at one of the comments and it says something along the lines of, I'm okay, like thank you, China, because now I'm okay with being a hoe. That is dangerous, because being a hoe is never something that we should be advocating. It's never something that we should be promoting. It's never something we should be proud of. You will regret that. Please, it's not okay to be a hoe, okay? It's not. Just because you have your sexual power doesn't mean that you should give it away. You should be holding that dear and tight. No man should be able to come and get you willy-nilly just because. Don't let your sexual desires overshadow you. Don't let them overpower you. Do not let your desires and your body work for you. Let your mind work first. When you're dating or you're meeting guys, connect with them emotionally. This is specifically for the younger women watching this. Do not just give yourself away to men, especially when you're young. You're probably dating other young boys. They're boys, okay? And they will use and abuse you 9 times out of 10. I'm not saying everyone will, but the majority of the time, they just want fun. So if you think that you are going to be in a relationship with them or that they actually care about you, 9 times out of 10, they don't. So don't give yourself away to lots of guys for the sake of being a hoe because this music makes it okay to be a hoe. No, it is not okay. And you are attaching energies to your soul that will take you years to get rid of. And now you have to go through therapy and you have to do all this work to get yourself back. And a lot of people never get themselves back. And you have to remember, in a lot of her lyrics, she's saying that she teases men and scams them. I'm not saying you should tease them and scam them. I'm just saying in that specific lyric, she's not saying anything about being a hoe. She's very specifically saying that she's creating this tease, creating this fantasy world where it allows her to get what she wants from it. That's where the misinterpretation lies. It's in lyrics like that. And number 2 will be exploitation. There's a fine line between empowerment and exploitation. It's the question of, is she teaching women to value themselves or to sexualize themselves, over sexualize themselves? And that's a big issue because although she appears that she knows her worth, her lyrics suggest to use sexuality to lure men and to get them in and to get what you want from them a lot of the times. And that's where the struggle of self-validation and self-deprivation comes in. Now, when it comes to exploitation, like I said earlier, we do live in a world where for a long time, especially more so before the Me Too movement, it was a case of, oh, he's touched you, but what were you wearing? Or how were you behaving? And it led to a lot of people being exploited in that way. And that's one of the issues that artists like her are raising. It's that fine line between, okay, you're dressing like this, which is going to grab the attention of men. So at what point is it your fault? Or at one point are you attracting what you're receiving? Now, don't get me wrong. I never, ever, ever, ever condone or believe that any sort of SA is to do with the woman at all. Absolutely not. Okay. If a man is doing anything to a woman without consent, the man is wrong. End of. But I'm explaining that there is a fine line between self empowerment and exploitation when it comes to artists like her. She's saying everything she's saying, she's dressing how she's dressing, she's doing what she's doing. It creates this confusion to men and women of, okay, so are you for sale? But there's a lot going on there. So it's a blurred line, and that can be very dangerous because when young women start to be like that, they actually have a megaphone and they're calling out for attention, and that attention can be very, very negative attention. So it won't be a lot of times that they're doing these things intentionally. A lot of the times it's going to be unintentionally, and that makes it all the more dangerous. And number three is femininity. What she's doing is really challenging that feminine subject that is really popular right now. There's a lot on feminine women, there's a lot on channeling your femininity, and a lot of those discussions are happening right now. And what she's doing is challenging that. What is feminine? She's very soft spoken in a sense. Her delivery is hard. I'm not going to lie. Her delivery is great. It's powerful. But she is quite girly in her voice, and she's quite pretty, and so there's an element of femininity to her. But she even says it in her lyrics. Oh, they say that I'm masculine or something like that. Anyone who's pegging someone, femininity goes out the window at that point, doesn't it? No matter how pretty or how soft spoken you are, that's a very dominant thing to do. So it completely, because also the person who's getting pegged, you're also now dominant where you're not going to tell me what to do. Get on your knees and grease my feet. Women, young girls dressing and acting that way might strip a lot of the femininity in them. Look, there is a way to be feminine. Feminine, I do believe, and I don't know if this is the actual definition or my interpretation and my opinion on femininity. I think it's more demure. I think it's more classy. I think it's more soft in terms of your approach. Feminine women are very smart and intelligent a lot of the times, and they know how to position themselves in a way that they can get their message across without being overbearing or being confrontational. I think that also comes across in the way that you dress. I think dressing feminine is more than just flowers and pink. I think it's about knowing how to create mystery in your modest clothing. And it doesn't have to be so modest that it's covered up to here, but I think it's still showing your feminine assets, but in a way that's, I'm not bearing it all for the world to see. To me, that's quite a feminine energy to have in a world where I think feminine and masculine energy are really at war, and I think there's a blurred line already. I think that creates even more division in that subject, and that can be very dangerous. We don't want the next generation of women to have lost all their femininity. And when it comes with the misinterpretation, a lot of these young women are going to be mimicking these things because it looks cool, because it looks fashionable, because it is a bit risque, and it does, make them flutter a little bit, because that's what it does. When you see sexuality and someone who's so present in their sexualness, it makes you feel, you get a bit excited too, not in a I fancy you type of way, but just sexual energy is transferable, it's powerful. So there is a concern about that stripping a lot of young women's femininity and individuality. So that's my pros and cons on Ceechyna and artists like her. And I think what's important is to find a balance. Now, I don't condone her as an artist. However, it's not me, it's not my life. She has nothing to do with me. And I'm not going to sit here and act like when I'm scrolling on TikTok and I hear her music, I'm not like, yeah, yeah. Like, it's hard. Like, the flow and everything and the beat, like, I'm kind of, it's very current, it's very modern day. But I don't condone women like her, because that's not the type of woman I am. That's not the type of woman I would like to raise. And that's not the type of coaching style that I would be providing. Like I said, there's some points to take from her, and those were the pros, like knowing your worth, reclaiming your voice, and self expression. I think those are positive attributes that she possesses. But I do think that her as an artist can and will and potentially has misled a lot of young women. I think it's really important to understand that we have a sexual power as women. Yes, it's so powerful, but there's more to us, and there's more to that sexual power than just sex. When it comes to dating, You don't want to give it out all on the table. You don't want to give your power away. And one of the ways you can give your power away very easily is to have sex too soon. That's biology. We already know that men release a hormone when they have sex where it's kind of like, the post nut clarity sort of thing, Before that, they just want to have fun. They just want to get in your pants. Once it's done, then they can see clearly, like, okay, do I actually like this girl? Oh, I actually don't really like much about her. And then it's done. You want men to be in love with you before you give yourself away. That's my opinion. That might be old school. It might not be your thing. And if it's not falling in love with you, then at least that they actually care. Unless that's just what you want to do, you just want to have fun, you just want to have sex, and that's your life. I'm not here to judge and to tell you how to live your life. I wouldn't encourage that if that's what you want to do. But go into it knowing it. Don't lie to yourself. Don't go into something thinking, yeah, he's going to be my husband, and just do whatever. Give yourself away, give all your power away, and then be like, oh, what happened? No, you have to take accountability at that time. If you just want to have fun, then have fun. But if you want something serious, I'm telling you that you cannot go into something serious having that sort of attitude. I know that I've had to own my sexual responsibility, let's call it, over the years. I was in a 10-year relationship, but prior to that, I was young, free, single, and dumb. And I gave my power away, and there was a lot of learning that I had to do. And that's why I encourage women now, especially young women, to not give their power away because it can be very detrimental. I think it's really important to understand and harness that power that you have. And I've had to do that. I've had to learn that. I think it's okay to take inspiration from women like Ceechyna, but you cannot blindly follow and just follow every lyric and every outfit. You can't do that. You have to have critical thinking when it comes to viewing women like her. You have to have self-awareness when it comes to consuming media, period. I think that it's important to understand the power of femininity in a broader concept when it comes to emotional intelligence, grace, and self awareness and self respect. It's the yin and yang to masculine energy. And in a world where we are losing the masculine and now we're losing the feminine, what are we going to be left with? What's going to happen? Because that's the yin and yang, that's how it's supposed to work. And that's quite scary. The most powerful women know their worth, but they know how and when to wield it. I really hope that you like this video, and I encourage you to really analyze your confidence and your self-awareness. Please share your thoughts, and I encourage you to be respectful. She is a young woman, Ceechyna, and look, she's growing, she's learning, and there are some great things to take from her, but there are also things that we need to be concerned about, and that's just the honest truth. Please be kind in the comments, but I do encourage discuss, like, what would you take from her? Do you think that her music and what she represents is good? Are you worried about society and the future of our young girls? What do you think? Or are you a young girl? How do you see her? How do you view her? Is there a level of respect? Are you taking advice from her? Like, I'm intrigued. So get down in the comments. As usual, please share, like, and subscribe to my channel. And if you like videos like this, please hit the notification bell so that you can be notified whenever I release another video. And I guess one of the most important questions I want to leave you with is, are you owning your power or are you borrowing someone else's? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye friends.